I've been following Alex Jones for now the saga for 6 years. This was before I even got into the vlog and before I got opinionated. One of my first viral law videos on YouTube was breaking down the deposition of Alex Jones in this trial. I didn't know that Robert Barnes, the guy that I would end up doing, what we're doing with now, was the lawyer in that case. And then YouTube took the video down because they said it was hate speech, and then it came back up and it got remonetized. So this has been going on for years. But Alex Jones, to back it up from the beginning, was sued by the Sandy Hook families in Connecticut and Texas for intentional infliction of emotional distress, defamation, all these claims on the basis that some of the statements he made over the years, which were factually incorrect, ill-advised, to put it mildly, caused them irreparable harm. And so he got sued. Ultimately, it was like 15 minutes of montage over 8 years of content, and the best they could get were certain statements which, however bad they were not worth the $1.5 billion judgments that they got in Connecticut and Texas. And now, important to note, the judgments they got in Connecticut and Texas were not in front of a jury after trial, after consideration. He was defaulted into liability in both of those states.
We have that NPR report.
No, it's what? Defaulted into liability. Not, okay, you don't get to defend yourself, but plaintiffs still need to prove their case. They alleged he violated or defaulted on discovery obligations, didn't communicate documents that he had access, that he didn't have access to, documents that didn't exist. Judges say, not only do you not get to present a defense, we adjudicate your liability, and the only trial you're going to get is on quantum, which is what I went down to Texas to view. It was, 2 years ago now. They hand-select a jury who's amenable to outlandish awards and then order an aggregate of $1.4 some odd billion in damages. An FBI agent who didn't have a kid get murdered that day, who didn't have any family get murdered that day, who was just doing his job as an FBI agent, was awarded $100 million in this as part of this $1.5 billion award because he said Alex Jones was harassing him online when that guy was getting harassed online before Alex Jones even got involved in the covering it. But you'd never know that because there was never any trial, any hearing. They didn't go over any legal questions as to actual malice that has to be proven against a public figure, media protections that would benefit Alex Jones, statute of limitations, default into liability, $1.5 billion. Okay, fine. In the context of that, Alex Jones, Infowars, files for bankruptcy protection, try to restructure, see if you can get a settlement to pay off these plaintiffs, not the $1.5 billion, but settle. Okay, well, you settle for $50 million over 5 years. It became clear that the lawyers...
I'm sorry, is that a realistic amount of money for him to pay?
From what I understand, that offer was on the table. And I don't know anything confidential. This is what has been publicly discussed. That there was like in the orders of 8 to 10 million a year over the course of several years. An offer that would have been much better than what's going on right now. But it's clear that the lawyers who are politically motivated, the FBI who sort of initiated this lawsuit by finding amenable plaintiffs to file the lawsuit, they're not interested in any form of compensation for the victims. They want to shut Alex Jones down, shut Alex Jones up. Okay. So they reject any offers for settlement, and it's not going anywhere. So then they petition him to bankruptcy, and it goes into liquidation. Judge Lopez out of Texas says, okay, we'll liquidate the assets, and it'll go to open market. Whoever bids the most will buy your assets out of bankruptcy. It turns out that in the dead of night, what was supposed to be a public bid, a public auction, was turned into a secret auction. People put them down. Nobody knows who offers what. And the trustee, a politically motivated hack, apparently accepted an offer from The Onion to buy the assets of Alex Jones out of bankruptcy, which wasn't even the highest offer, financed with basically the judgment, bonded judgment, or like they're going to leverage the judgment of $1.6 billion to buy the assets of Alex Jones. So they say, we have a $1.5 billion judgment. It's worth, let's just say $100 million, if we can even get that. $10 million. We'll use that judgment to buy the assets, financing The Onion to acquire it in a secret auction, which is no longer an auction. And they go ahead and shut down Alex Jones, cut the cables, cut the whatever, the feeds yesterday. And they go to court, and this Judge Lopez says, this is improper to say the least. If we play, we won't play the whole thing, but Alex Jones summarizing a bit. This was yesterday.
Future press secretary of the United States right there. That's right. Alex Jones.
So check this out. This is him giving a bit of the rundown.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is 7:50 right now. I'm about to upload this to X. I just got word 15 minutes ago that my lawyers and folks met with the U.S. trustee over our bankruptcy this morning, and they said they're shutting us down even without a court order. This morning, the Connecticut Democrats with The Onion newspaper bought us. They asked, did they outbid? They said, well, it was competitive. So they changed all the bidding rules, made it secret 2 days ago. I had a bad feeling. I told you that. And just like they tried to shut us down back in late May without a court order, they're supposed to have a court order. There's going to be injunctions filed. I'm about to go live out of Harrison's American Journal studio. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to be here until they come in here and turn the lights off. And I'm going to say, where's your court order? So this is all going down right now. They want to silence the American people, but we're not going to be silenced. Be sure and follow me at the Alex Jones Network at AJN Live on X right now. They're filed in court to take real Alex Jones away. That's totally unconstitutional. The judge already said no, so they filed in other courts.
Okay, you can pause
so
here.
Live feed going up.
So bottom line, he sort of set up an alternative platform. But yeah, appreciate what was going on there, because they go in and try to basically, without the judge even ratifying this, because in bankruptcy, unless I'm mistaken, the judge has to approve of the sale of the assets and make sure, A, that it's in the best interest of the plaintiffs, the judgment creditors, and B, just approve of it to make sure that there's no chicanery going on. I'm predicting now that there's going to be ethics complaints by these plaintiffs against their lawyers, who are basically acting in a way to ensure that they get pennies on the dollar as opposed to tens of millions of dollars by way of an acceptable settlement. We can skip over those. That was the summary of the liability findings. And then The Onion comes out yesterday before the hearing. So they had a hearing yesterday in front of Judge Lopez. The video we just saw was before the hearing.
Okay.
And the hearing, now the judge said, none of this makes any sense. I'm not authorizing this. And come next week, we're going to have an evidentiary hearing on what the hell went down that you guys thought you could do this behind closed doors in secrecy and then come in and shut Alex Jones. If we bring up his name is Tetrator. It's really funny. They say Tetrator. He's the trader puts out a funny article as to why The Onion bought Infowars, and it seems that they maybe didn't get away with doing it. And anybody who wants to go read it online, basically they say, oh, well, Infowars has been great at fear-mongering and promoting conspiracy theories for the last 20 years, starting with whatever. And so it would be a great addition to The Onion, so that we can take it over and turn it into a joke, which I think is the ultimate objective here. They wanted to take Alex Jones's name and likeness as an asset in bankruptcy. The judge said, no, you can't do that, because it would basically turn Alex Jones into an indentured servant. But what they want to do is shut Alex Jones down. But beyond that, I'm convinced that they wanted, by doing this, to turn the future legacy of Infowars into the current legacy of The Onion, a failed satire website, so that in 5 years' time, when anybody hears Infowars, they're going to think, oh, failed satire website, not accurate, predictive warnings and messaging and news information to the public. So it's a way of sort of like not just shutting Alex Jones down, but discrediting his legacy.
It's a humiliation ritual.
Yeah.
And like you said, they didn't even take the highest bid. They took the one that most suited what they wanted to have happen with Infowars, which was they wanted Alex Jones humiliated. They wanted Infowars' name dragged through the mud more so than it already has been. And this isn't even to say, Alex Jones is 100% solid about all his stuff. Like, he has a record of being incorrect about plenty of things, but that's not the point. He was a serious news outlet for whatever else it was. And like you said, The Onion is a terribly failed publication with its own legacy dragged through the mud by having the Babylon Bee take over as the actual satire outlet that people like now.
So what was there an appeals process, though? Because it sounds like a highly abnormal situation, like same way as Trump. So that sounds like a politically motivated court. So
it politically motivated is an understatement. Yeah. There is an appeals process, but from what I understand, in Texas, you can execute on a judgment notwithstanding an appeal. So it is all going to appeal.
For the first one, though, the one from Connecticut,
that one's under appeal as well.
And I want to make another point here. I don't know if you guys remember this Marine. I think it was last year. His name is Daniel Penny. All right. We're seeing that the trial right now is the punishment. All right. This guy got dragged around. So to show a point, like if you talk out of line, we're gonna come for everything that you have. If you protect people in public, because you guys saw the video of him choking the guy. The guy was about to be violent. All right. And the trial right now is dwindling down, but they destroyed his public image. They destroyed his life.
Wait,
right?
I don't understand how they could move forward with things though while the appeal process is pending.
It's a legislative problem. Not all states allow for execution of judgment if it's under appeal, or you post a certain bond to make sure that you'll have the monies to satisfy it if your appeal is not granted. It's a big problem. In Texas, it's a big problem because if Alex Jones wins on appeal, the damage is more than already done. But to your point about the auction and accepting the one that accomplished their goals and not the one that accomplished the financial interests of their clients, I know nothing confidential. Roger Stone, from what I understood, was putting together a conservative group to buy the assets. obviously for more than what the Onion was buying it for, because from what I understand, the Onion's offer wasn't even the biggest one. And the trustee says, no, we have other considerations that are not financial. I presume that's what he said. And the other issue being, hold on now, I totally forgot my thought there. Oh, yes, destroying the legacy. There's an analogy here between, what do commies do or Marxists do? They destroy history. They blow up buildings. They destroy artwork. They tear down monuments. This is an iteration of tearing down a monument, of blowing up a building of history. No, they're erasing history by rebranding it as The Onion and not Infowars. And I mean, it's a pure Marxist tactic. We'll see what happens next week, but this transaction was never going to go through in my view. I said it yesterday. The only question is, how pissed off is a judge going to be that you have rogue trustees and rogue attorneys trying to undermine and humiliate the authority of the court in the public's eye?
So what's the biggest like liability or problem with the courts where we see the capability for them to be politically motivated, like with Trump and with Alex Jones? So, like, is there a single biggest issue or change that we could make to make it less vulnerable to these things?
I don't know. It wouldn't be bad to see some red AGs going after some of these rogue prosecutors, these rogue judges, ethics complaints, like Elise Stefanik filing ethics complaints against Engoron in New York and Leticia James in New York. The judges are partisan, and whether or not they're elected or appointed, I mean, you run into a sort of corruption in that this was in Austin, Texas. It's the bluest of the cities within a red state. Politics ruins everything. I mean, you get judges who are politically motivated and not legally oriented. This is what ends up happening.
Same with the jury. Crazy question, but do you think that we ever get to a place where like there's like an AI judge that could be unbiased? Like that thought just popped.
Who programs the AI judge?
Right.
Well, I would put more faith in an AI judge than in some of the judges that we've seen, but
the Honorable Judge Grok now presiding.
In fun mode.
You would get more accurate rulings by way of damages.
Right.
There's never been a $450 million disgorgement in a victimless alleged fraud like we saw in New York. A $1.5 billion for intentional infliction of emotional. It's astronomical, unheard of. And so, if only for the quantum, it has to be overturned. The process has been totally bastardized. I was involved in a case where a defendant had behaved so badly they were defaulted, foreclosed from pleading, which is far different than being defaulted into liability. Foreclosed from pleading, you don't get to defend your case, but they still need to make their evidence. So from day one to the present day, this has been a politically motivated lawfare attempt to destroy Alex Jones. Some hypothesize because he helped get Trump elected, and this is sort of the Clinton machine getting back at him. And a deep state apparatus getting back at him.
Well, the harder they try to get somebody, like the more blatant and brute force they are, the closer the person is to hitting the nerve. Like the way they were willing to go out on a limb against Trump and with Alex Jones, it must mean they're really onto something that's scary to them.
Their very existence. But the bottom line irony in all of this, and Jones says it often, is like he would have been retired into the sunset now had they not done this. And instead, not only are they martyrizing him, not only are they making his voice bigger than ever and his networks bigger than ever, they're keeping him in business doing what he's doing because he would have been out and, enjoying his life in Texas.
That's the same thing they did with Donald Trump with the fictitious charges in New York, Georgia, and
the Mouse House lady.
You got Florida, D.C.
Well, yeah, there it is.
You got
New York,
everywhere.
Georgia, and Florida were the ones that he was facing charges in. Yeah. And then it just ended up making him more likable to the American public because the American public looked at him and went, wow, look, the government is prosecuting him. If they can prosecute him, then they can prosecute any one of us. And he said it at one point. And I thought he was being Trump when he said the only thing standing between them doing this to you is me. And I thought that was him being braggadocious. But then I realized, I'm like, wow, they're doing this to him. So if they can do this to him, then it shows that, hey, you step out of line. Look what we did to a sitting president.
Well, I would take it the other way around. He's saying if they can do this to me, they can do it to you. I think Trump has revealed they have been doing this to people systematically over decades, but people without the bullhorns, people without the support to actually put it on blast and fight back. They've been screwing people in the federal system for decades. They've been using lawfare for decades. I mean, they started with Alex Jones a decade ago. But the only thing is, Trump had the bullhorn to put it on blast, and people saw in Trump themselves being victimized by this system.
So is this stat true? I heard somebody say today that 99% of people who are federal have a what is it called, like federally prosecuted or have a felony against them, they have to take a plea because they can't afford to fight the legal battle. So Trump was in a unique situation where he had the wealth and means to fight something, but normally in politics, if this happened to somebody, then they would have to bend over, like kind of like Michael Flynn.
Well, like Trump's lawyers in Georgia who pleaded to a case that's probably going to get dismissed, and I say that not blaming them. They say like something like it's like 95% conviction rate if you include plea deals, and it's what they do: overcharge, threaten you and your family, bankrupt you, like they did with Paul Manafort, lock you up, and that's for those who even have who have remote means. But this is what they do. It is on full blast now, and this is why you need a full cleaning of the House, and this is why you have people freaking out at having an AG like Matt Gaetz as opposed to a corrupt asshole like Merrick Garland.
What do you
now
think your network?
let's talk about the business aspect of this, all right? You take Alex Jones out of the Infowars, like it's worth nothing because Infowars is Alex Jones. Let's say they grab his vitamin and supplement business. You take Alex Jones out of that business, he just goes to another company and make a new one. So like Alex Jones is Infowars. So if you don't buy Infowars with Alex Jones in it, and the other thing is the right, we've been pegged by the system so much that we're so used of our influencers and voices to be banned that we like the audience shifting from this account to that account is already a move that we know how to do, so it matters of time. I don't know if you're going to give him 60 days of non-compete or whatever, and in 60 days he's going to get back every Infowars fan back on his network.
And speaking of the business side of things, I want to point out another humorous irony here is that the Onion itself was sold off early this year by its own parent company. I wrote this article about 8 months ago. Geo Media was the parent company of the Onion, several other publications, including Deadspin. I don't know if you remember Deadspin, which was the one that took the sports publication that found the picture of that little kid at the Kansas City Chiefs game.
Yes, and then they said he was in blackface.
They only showed half his face, and they accused him of blackface. That company was also sold off by this parent company. So the people who currently own the Onion and use the Onion to buy Infowars just picked up this failed publication like 4 or 5 months ago. And the guy who's currently the CEO is a former misinformation reporter, I believe, from NBC. So he knows nothing about satire and comedy and news publication. But he does know everything about cracking down on people who counter the narrative.
Just to your point also about the value of the company being zero without Alex Jones.
Zero.
The best not analogy comparison. Project Veritas without James O'Keefe, value zero. And so it highlights that what they're doing is killing any value, killing any potential for these plaintiffs to actually recover meaningful sums on their judgment. Out of what motivation, I don't know, but the plaintiffs should sue their lawyers sooner than later.
Say, can they sue for that?
1,000%. 1,000%.
Okay, nice.
And I'm sure they will when they say like, hey, we had a $10 million, $80 million a year for 5 years on the table, and now we got $1 million in studio equipment that the Onion is using. What the hell did you do to us, lawyers?
Yeah.
It's insane. It's objectively insane. And whether you like Alex Jones or not, everybody has to be a little bit peeved with this because it's people say stupid things and people say things that hurt people. The reality is, when it comes to the Sandy Hook families, the conspiracy theories were out there before Alex Jones got involved. He only got involved because his audience is saying, have you heard these theories? But nobody ever heard any of that evidence because no evidence was adduced. And you let something like this happen where you say one wrong thing and they're going to ruin you for the rest of your life.
I've showed footage on this show of early reports about that second guy dressed in a black shirt and camo pants that people saw fleeing the campus into the woods that never aired again after that first time. And that's like, those are just confirmed things that happened early on.
Yeah, and that's not something that you could still go on YouTube. It's hard to find, but I've seen that video of the person and the news covering it from the helicopter because there's a helicopter overhead of the school and they're tracking a mysterious figure in camo pants running into the woods, and then you never hear that. Gets memory hold real quick. And then if you bring it up, it's like, oh, you don't believe Sandy Hook happened? It's like, no, wait, I'm just asking about that. It's like,
jump?
What, you don't think those kids died? No, I I do believe they died. I just have questions about, you must like Alex Jones and the frogs are gay. And you're like, okay, I can't even talk to this.
The frogs were gay, by the way.
And that actually turned out to be kind of true.
Yeah, now everybody's gay.
Me too.
No, but the issue also is if the new standard is violent event denialism is a $1.5 billion award, everyone out there denying that Trump got shot in the ear and that Corey Comparatore is dead, $1 billion. I mean,
Right.
the idea that you
Hear that, JoJo from Jers?
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. But it is to be expected that when a massively tragic event occurs, people will have conspiracy theories, and ask questions. And if that becomes criminalized, you are criminalizing the ability to actually do any form of meaningful investigative journalism.
But okay, I dealt with that, and I still do with 9/11. I know I bring it up in every episode. Hi, 9/11. Welcome. It happened. I never forget. That's a certain way that people cope, is to try and understand, because it doesn't make sense to the person. You can watch those planes fly into those buildings. I've done it 1,000 times over the past 23 years. To me, it still doesn't make sense to me. So my brain's still trying to figure out, did this happen from 19 guys that were funded by a guy that was hiding in a cave on dialysis that made videos afterwards saying he didn't do it? Like, he literally denied it in multiple interviews and said, no, it wasn't me. And then years later, okay, maybe I did. That's kind of how human nature is. When you see something that you don't understand, your brain tries to figure out a way. And sometimes the dots don't always connect. Alex Jones said, I was wrong about Sandy Hook. He came out and admitted.
And not just that, by the way, when he was after the default liability, even on the quantum, he was not allowed asserting his innocence. He was not allowed talking about the times he corrected himself and affirmed the death of the children, and he wasn't allowed invoking the fact that he had apologized to the families previously multiple times. It was all just wild. But the coping mechanism is interesting, because that is, I think, what drives a lot of the people who deny that Sandy Hook occurred. There's some people out there who still think 9/11 was holograms. And so it is a way for people who cannot accept an atrocity to cope with the atrocity, to make up it never happened. So I don't need to worry about this happening again to me or my family.
And it is. We'll move on. But the idea of, we talked about this before the show, that, okay, it's horrific when you see any type of school shooting. I was in college when the Virginia Tech shooting. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Hung Chung
The Asian
Du
kid
or whatever.
who had a semi-automatic pistol, no rifles or anything that I recall
And
from
went
that.
from classroom to classroom and was executing kids. It's horrific to see. There is something particularly heinous about young children in elementary school. So it is. I understand having questions about it, because it's hard for your mind to wrap that around. At that point, when they're that age, they're sitting ducks. They don't know what's going on. They don't know how to defend themselves. High school kids, college kids, they can figure out how to hide, how to run. They're still not like able to defend themselves as they should be able to in that scenario. They don't have guns. But children are particularly vulnerable. So it is very hard. So I could see how people have questions about these things. And then when their investigations come out and they go, you know what, I was wrong. That wasn't the way. But then they, on top of that, go, I'm wrong. Oh, by the way, you owe $1.5 billion to be. He's going to be selling food buckets for the rest of his life if he had to pay that judgment off.
The worst part of it all is that if the government wanted to protect schools, it'd be very easy. It'd cost $10 billion a year to put an armed guard and metal detectors at every school in the country. But
We
instead,
can't do that. We have to send that money
Ten
to you.
Alex
I know, Ukraine's
10 Alex
more
Jones
important.
settlements.
No,
to fix the
and
problem.
part of the issue as to why people did have conspiracy theories about Sandy Hook is they did tear down the school very quickly afterwards. And then people say, why? Some people came to the conclusion, the wrong one, that it didn't happen. Others say they tore it down so that they wouldn't know that there were security lapses that they were supposed to have implemented in that school that would have mitigated that potential disaster. So tear the school down so nobody can investigate it. And then weaponize it as a Second Amendment issue so you can go after the guns. And then you get the talking heads on the media saying, we'll stand on the graves of these children to take away your firearms.
They tore the school down.
yeah.
Now, to clarify, the Stoneman Douglas building is still up in Parkland. I drive past it pretty frequently when we go to visit family members over there. It's been empty.
You make the argument they didn't want the memory of it there or whatever.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
kinda,
that's what
kind of
they-
like how they cremated the kid that shot Trump.
That's what they said about Douglas. They,
Yeah, well,
they said
it's
they were
kinda-
going to tear down the building.
They kept
but
Columbine
haven't
up.
done it yet.
In
Yeah.
fact,
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
there's a weird part of me that when I go on vacation, they're always to these destinations where horrific moments in history happen. and
Your
then
eyes
I
go crazy when you say that.
I go to these weird murder sites. Like, I went to Columbine because I was in 7th grade when that happened, and it was the first time where you're watching a school shooting unfold in real time, and I wanted to go see it for myself. I know that that's incredibly fucked up to hear that you spend money to go on a vacation to go to these death ritual places. But I like. There's a part of me that the morbid curiosity. I need to see it so I can understand. They did tear down Sandy Hook Elementary.
Wait, serious
School.
question.
but so-
serious
but
question,
with
serious
it-
It was
question.
just near where you went to vacation. You didn't go to vacation just to go there.
Sure,
right?
we'll go with that.
Wait. Was there any other people doing the same thing?
No.
Well, no, they
It
have-
wasn't like I was part of the Columbine tour.
No, but there is a known thing. It's called like morbid tours, and like people go to the sites of
No,
disaster.
my best friend, his parents lived in Denver, and or
Okay.
it was in the mountains of Denver. But when we landed, I went, "Hey, do you mind if we take this 20-minute detour after we go to the dispensary so I can go? Because I'm gonna need to be numb to see what I want to go see."
See the proximity of tearing down the school to the event.
Demolished October of 2013 after the shooting happened December 14th of 2012. So you're talking 9 months later.
Interesting.
That is a weird. I understand you don't want it to be there, but there's also this part where, hey, how could we learn from this devastating school shooting? If there were security lapses, let's go and figure out what they were.
If there were security lapses that ought to have been implemented that were not implemented, and then you go from that to tearing down the school so it can't be investigated and scapegoating. There are people out there who think Alex Jones had something to do with the murder.
Oh yeah, I've heard people say Alex Jones killed the kids in Sandy Hook. I'm like, wait a minute,
or that he motivated the shooter. I mean, everything that they went after Alex for was post facto, after the rumors, the scandals, and the theories had already been born, so to speak. And they're look, for whatever anybody thinks, they have used crisis actors in the past in certain events, wars, tragedies, etc., to further propaganda. Yeah. So the idea that people who know the history then apply it, albeit improperly, to current events, one can understand it without saying now they have to be ruined for the rest of their life.
Well, I don't know, man. Maybe we ought to move on. I don't think Patrick has $1.5 billion either.
Oh, I'm saying I believe Sandy Hook happened, and I feel bad for the families, as does everybody here on the podcast in some capacity. We just have questions about what happened. Well, I don't think there's anything wrong.
That's the gravest sin you could commit: asking a question.
You've had a little too much to think.
It's got presidents killed, and it got Alex Jones deplatformed and sued into billions.
So if you like this clip, click right here. And if you want to see more like it, click right here. Stay angry, Patriots.